America now months into fighting coronavirus, and right now many billionaires are still getting richer and Black communities are still getting sicker and dealing with higher rates of fatality. As Dr. Anthony Fauci recently said, this is in part a direct product of years and years of institutional racism that is still happening today. My next guest has made it his mission to address the core disparities perpetuating this crisis, both the poverty crisis and the health crisis, and access to strong education. With me now is Kwame Owusu-Kesa, CEO, newly appointed CEO of the Harlem Children's Zone. It is, if anyone doesn't know, Kwame, a remarkable organization. You guys fight poverty from, cradle to career, and even former President Obama has said of your model, it is literally saving a generation of children. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning.
What are you seeing on the ground in terms of the disproportionate adverse impact of the COVID crisis, of course, on the Black community, but on Black kids, Black children?
Absolutely. COVID-19 has been so devastating to our community. We've never seen a calamity like this. And this requires bold action because it's a multi-dimensional threat. And for us here at the Harlem Children's Zone, we sprung into action, both on the ground in Central Harlem and also having meaningful impact on a couple cities across America. And what we have noticed is there were 5 emerging areas that need immediate need. The first was the need for emergency relief funds. We've been able to distribute over $300,000 to our community. The second is this idea of protecting our most vulnerable, having access to essential goods and information. So we've distributed over a couple thousand 2-week supplies of non-perishable food items, in addition to launching a public health campaign, #StayCoveredHarlem, emphasizing the importance of wearing a mask and keeping social distance. The third is this idea of bridging the digital divide. Internet is a fundamental right for our young people, and we need to make sure that our families have connectivity and all school-age students have the proper learning devices. So we've been able to distribute over 1,000 laptops and 140 mobile Wi-Fi units. The fourth component was this idea of preventing learning loss. There's a generation of students at risk of losing up to a year of school. So we need to ensure to continue to provide high-quality virtual supports, in addition to having proactive plans for safe re-entry into our school buildings in the fall. And the fifth and final component on the ground in Harlem is this idea of mitigating the mental health crisis. We know there's a generation at risk of having PTSD due to the massive amounts of toxic stress. So again, ensuring that our young people have access to counselors, to social workers, and our families have access to proper virtual supports and telehealth. And we've been able to share what we've been doing on the ground in Harlem with partners across 6 cities in America. And those cities are Oakland, Minneapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Newark, and Atlanta, who is customizing our 5-pronged approach for their cities.
Your story,
Absolutely.
I mean, you're a Harvard graduate, you've been incredibly successful, but you came from a single, parent home, you dealt with poverty, and I just wonder, as a Black man who personally had to overcome a system designed for you to fail, not designed for you to succeed, what can every person do? Everyone with white privilege right now, what can every person do to help lift these kids up who don't get to be part of Harlem Children's Zone?
Well, my story is the story of the students of the Harlem Children's Zone. And it was folks that invested in me and believed in my potential that allowed me to now be in the seat where I can become the CEO of such an amazing organization that's doing phenomenal things on the ground. And for those that are asking the question of how can I get involved, we believe the answer to everything that we're seeing playing out in our community is targeting neighborhoods with comprehensive services. This was a fantastic week that we had at the Harlem Children's Zone with our national partners. And we had a unique opportunity to present to the Audacious Group, which is a collaborative funding effort that catalyzes capital for social impact efforts that is housed at TED. And we were able to raise $26 million this week, which is going to be a phenomenal impact on the ground for our communities. But we know more needs to be done. And we're going to be able to help leverage that $26 million as part of our greater $50 million effort to be able to make sure and ensure that our communities have the resources they need to be able to unlock their full potential.
Yeah. Your numbers show it all with every student going on to college. I'll post this on social media as well so people can find the link where they can help, where they can get involved. Congratulations on becoming CEO, and we wish you so much luck, Kwame. Thank you.
Bobby, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Jessica Paget, and I'm a teacher at Wild Lake High School. And what we're trying to do is support our students by supporting equity at Wild Lake. And the idea of make a difference, make up the difference. Are you looking for a tangible and powerful way to support our work with our students at Wild Lake to create an equitable learning community? Our students frequently arrive to Wild Lake High School in 9th grade having been tracked in math classes that prevent them from accessing higher level math before graduation. In order to remove this barrier prior to the school closure, we invited a cadre of 8th and 9th grade students to be able to take a math course during summer school at a very reduced cost that will allow them to accelerate their math pathway. We have not yet raised enough funds to cover the cost differential between the original cost of summer school class and the student's financial contribution. If you would like to help make up the difference, you can donate to our Student Support Fund. Aside from the Student Support Fund for this item is that we can also fundraise anything from helping support athletics, from supporting the arts, and supporting field trips for our students. Thank you so much for your support for our Wildcats.
My name is Philip Jones, and I'm a professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Iowa State University. I got my PhD from Washington University in 2008 and started being a professor at Iowa State University in the summer of 2008 as well. When I first came to campus, about, I would say, a month or two after arrival, I got a phone call from a fellow professor in the chemical engineering department. And he informed me that he was the first professor of African American descent to be a professor in the College of Engineering at Iowa State University. And this was pretty surprising to me, given that the college has been around since around 1908, so about 100 years. So about 100 years of being a College of Engineering, they had hired their first African American professor. And he was informing me that I was the second. So he started in 1990, I started in 2000, so about a decade later I became the second in the College of Engineering. So that meant that I was actually the first professor of African American descent in my department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. And that department's been around for about 100 years also. So that was probably the first time it really hit me how rare it was for minorities to become professors, especially African American descent. It was a couple years later, I was at a conference and they were given stats about numbers of people with PhDs in different disciplines. And during this talk, it indicated the year I graduated with my PhD in 2008, there was less than 10 computer engineers with PhDs that graduate with PhDs as computer engineers that were African American descent. And I didn't really pay much attention to that until probably about, 30, 40 minutes later, and it really hit me that this person wasn't saying that there were 8 African American computer engineers with PhDs like from my school or from my state. It was from the whole country of the United States. In the year 2008, there was approximately 10 PhDs in computer engineering from African American descent. So it really hit me with how fortunate I was with the opportunities I had coming up, and especially during undergrad, the National Society of Black Engineers was a group that gave me some mentoring support during that time. They also point me in the direction of what's called the Graduate Engineering Minority Fellowship, which helped fund a big portion of my master's and PhD. So I'm very grateful to that, and I'm looking for ways for myself to give back to the community, to try to have more people that kind of look like me in places as professors, because if you only have a very small number of people getting PhDs in a certain area, even a smaller fraction than that, actually become professors. So I'm pretty excited about trying to give back to such communities. Thank you.